Hi, everyone. Welcome to another ACOI Resident Programs. I am Dr. Hank Chaudhry. I'm the President and CEO of the Federation of State Medical Boards. I'm also a past president of the ACOI. I am a general internist by training, and I have training in public health. I also have training in aerospace medicine, having served as a flight surgeon in the Air Force. So I'm delighted for this particular session to talk to you about the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept, but I think it's something you should know, especially in training as you begin to contemplate what it's like to actually go into practice. So first, a little background about the FSMB. Some of you may know this already. The FSMB was founded in 1912. It supports all 69 of the state medical and osteopathic medical licensing boards in the U.S., its territories, and the District of Columbia. We serve our member boards as they fulfill their mandate, lawful mandate to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare through proper medical licensing, medical discipline when needed, and regulation of not only physicians, but also physician assistants or physician associates, as they're sometimes called, and other healthcare professionals like EMTs, respiratory therapists, etc. Depending on the state board, they will have any number of additional healthcare providers that they license. I should mention the FSME does not tell the state boards what to do, but it serves as an important national organization to serve the needs of the state medical board community, to represent them, but also to enable conversations and discussions about various topics. We have various policies that we pass to enable the state boards to do their mandate better. So let me talk about the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. So let me go back actually. So as you know, or you should know, in the United States, medical licenses are issued by the jurisdiction, by either the state or the territory in which you are training and ultimately getting practice. It is not given by the country, by the United States. In many countries, there is a national licensure. And so you may wonder, why is it that if I train in New York and I am well qualified at the end of my training, I have to get a New York State license. Why can't I get a license that allows me to practice in every state? And why is it that if I travel to California, I can't practice medicine in California, even though I'm a highly qualified physician? Why do I have to get another license in California? And how long does that take? And what does that entail? So part of the reason for this is when the nation was founded, as you know, there were 13 colonies, a decision had to be made about who handles what. Clearly, defense of this new country, our new nation, all of the colonies who became states said clearly that should be handled by the federal government. We don't want to have to worry about protecting the nation, our new nation. Leave that to the central government. What about licensing? At some point, somebody asked of doctors, nurses, and whatnot, and the states said, well, we've been doing that as colonies separately. In fact, New York State had a licensing board even for those physicians who were practicing in New York City. So New York City even had its own licensing board. And the state boards at the time said, you know what, we know how to do this. So no need for the central government to get involved. The states will continue to license physicians. And as the states grew from 13 to 50 and then added some more territories, that concept has remained. And it's enshrined in the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which supports states' rights. So that's why in the United States, if someone ever asks, how come you don't have a national license? That's why it's actually in the Constitution. It dates to the founding of our organization that the licensing is a local jurisdiction of the state or the U.S. territory. So, of course, that was then. And now, if you think about it, physicians are mobile, patients are mobile, and now we have telemedicine. So many people have asked, is there some other means by which a physician can lawfully practice in other states? And so that's a legitimate question. And so about a dozen years ago, a little more, the Federation of State Medical Boards, my organization, brought together all the nation's state medical boards and said, hey, what can we do together that makes sense that would allow physicians to get a license to practice medicine in multiple jurisdictions in a much more streamlined fashion than they do now? Because right now, you have to apply for a license in every state, and it could take weeks to months to get another license. And it seems like a clunky, bureaucratic system that is not very efficient, especially as people want to get licensed right away. They want to be able to practice medicine not only in person, but also in telemedicine. And that really was the genesis of the interstate medical licensure concept. So the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact is a voluntary, expedited pathway to facilitate multi-state practice, which allows obviously increased access to care for patients in underserved areas, rural areas, and allows them to more easily connect with medical experts using telemedicine technologies. Um, and I'll go over in more detail. An estimated 83% of all licensed physicians, MDs and DOs in the US are eligible for getting multiple licenses through this pathway. Now, what about the other 17%? We'll talk about that in a moment. So again, here's the detailed history of the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. In January of 2013, so almost 13 years ago, actually exactly 13 years ago, the FSMB convened representatives from state boards and said, hey, what can we do to enable physicians to practice across state lines, not only in person, but through telemedicine, without destroying state laws, the 10th Amendment, and how do we figure this out? And so a few months later, a proposal was presented to the House of Delegates of the FSMB to develop an interstate compact to expedite medical licensure and facilitate this multi-state practice. This passed by our House of Delegates, and ultimately in May of 2015, in the middle of this slide, as you can see, the compact was activated with the seventh state joining. Now, why is that important? We didn't know if this would really work. So we said if we can get 7 states to agree, then we know that it probably has some teeth and is worth pursuing. When that seventh state joined in May of 2015, it took a couple of years between 13 and 2015. That's when it was officially activated. It took another 2 years by April of 2017 for the commission that was created for this compact to actually begin processing applications. And look at that last milestone. And as of May of 2025, the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact has now processed more than 150,000 medical licenses, allowing physicians to practice in many more jurisdictions, either in person or through telemedicine. And that's phenomenal. And this is something we're very proud of at the FSMB. I'm very proud of have been part of this important development. In fact, back in April of 2015, you can search this in New England Journal of Medicine. I was honored to be one of the authors of this article summarizing how the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact idea is designed to improve access and mobility. And sure enough, over the years, it really has succeeded. So here are the 9 physician eligibility requirements if you're interested in getting more than one medical license by the time you finish your training. One is pretty straightforward: graduation from a medical school that's accredited by the LCME, that's the Liaison Committee for Medical Education that oversees MD schools; COCA, the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation, which oversees the medical schools, the osteopathic medical schools; or if it's a foreign medical school, an international medical school that's listed in the International Medical Education Directory or its equivalent. So that's easy, the first criterion. You have to be a graduate of a medical school that's recognized. Second, you had to have passed your USMLE or COMLEX within 3 attempts for each of those steps or levels, which sounds pretty reasonable. Or if you're an older physician, any of its predecessor examinations that are accepted by a state medical board. At one time, we had state medical board examinations. At one time, we had something called the FLEX examination, the Federation's own licensing examination. Before we had the USMLE, we had the NBME examination. Before we had the COMLEX, we had the NBOME examination. So all those predecessor exams are acceptable and would be part of this eligibility requirement as long as for each of the steps or portions, you haven't required more than 3 attempts to pass. We think that's reasonable. And remember, one of the reasons these criteria are a little bit tighter than for routine licensure is the state board's thinking was if we're going to be giving out licenses left and right, we want to make sure that the criteria are a little bit stronger than routine criteria. So that's why the third requirement is not a requirement to get a license ordinarily, but it is a requirement for multiple licenses through this Interstate Medical Licensure Compact, and that is completion or fellowship approved by a completion of residency or fellowship approved by the ACGME or the AOA. As you know, even though today you're all in ACGME approved residency programs, there were separate AOA residency and fellowship programs. If you're going to go through this process, that's one of the requirements that you have successfully completed residency and or fellowship in your area of expertise that's approved by ACGME or AOA. So that's different. That's not ordinarily required for you to complete residency or fellowship. Ordinarily, 1 or 2 years, depending on the state, of residency training is all you need to apply, but this is different. Fourth is another example of something that ordinarily is not required for licensure, but for multiple licenses is required, and that is that you hold specialty certification status or a time unlimited specialty certificate that is recognized by either the American Board of Medical Specialties or the American Osteopathic Association's Bureau of Osteopathic Specialists. Now, it doesn't mean that once you get specialty certification and you get multiple licenses through this pathway that you have to maintain that certification, but at the time of application, you have to be specially certified by either the ABMS or the AOA or both, depending on your circumstance. Number 5, already possess at least one full and unrestricted license to practice medicine. So you do have to get one license the traditional way. So that's probably going to be the license where you complete your training. But once you get that license, you can use this pathway to get additional licenses if you want to. Remember, this is voluntary. This is not mandatory. Your record has to be clean, no criminal history. You have to have had no disciplinary action by any licensing agency, never had a controlled substance license or permit suspended or revoked by the DEA, and you have to have not been under active investigation by a licensing agency or law enforcement authority at the time of this application. So these are the basically nine eligibility requirements for the Interstate Compact. And looking at our data at the FSMB, 83% of the nation's physicians, MDs and DOs, would meet these criteria. The other 17% have some issues. Maybe they didn't complete their residency. Maybe they took more than 3 attempts to pass the USMLE or COMLEX. Maybe they're not specially certified. Maybe they have a history of a disciplinary action. Maybe they've had some other issue that's going on, or they've had some restricted on their license. So that's why those individuals would not be eligible for this pathway, but they're welcome to apply for multiple licenses through the traditional pathway. So in many ways, the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact, we like to think of it as kind of like a TSA pre-check. If you meet these 9 criteria, you can get additional licenses very easily through this pathway. So how many states accept the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact? So this is a very busy slide, but all the states in dark blue are full members of the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. 42 states plus DC and Guam accept and have passed laws to accept the pathway of the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. Now, some states have not. Oregon, California, Alaska, New Mexico, South Carolina, Virginia have not done that yet. But there are other states that have, there are various points of, and also Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands have not done that, but the vast majority of states have done so. So by the numbers, as I say, 42 states plus TC and Guam have signed this into law. Arkansas and North Carolina joined in 2025. New York and Massachusetts, I should mention, have introduced legislation but not yet passed the law. The very first license was issued in April 2017. And as of January 1st of this year, 187,188 medical licenses have been issued by participating jurisdictions under this pathway. So let me just finish up with a few other things. The Interstate Medical Licensure Compact Commission runs the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. You do have to pay a fee if you're interested in going through this pathway. It's a $700 one-time fee. The $300 fee is paid to the state of principal licensure where you got your original license. The $400 fee is to the rest of it is to the commission. You also have to pay fees for each of the additional state licenses that you want. So there are some physicians who want licenses in every state, and that's fine. But keep in mind that there is going to be a fee attached to every state. So you may not want to get a license in every single state in the union. You may want to get a license in adjoining states or states where you know your patients are located. The commission that runs the Interstate Compact began meeting in 2015. It's gotten some funds to enable this to occur, and the FSMB has been happy to apply for those funds on behalf of the commission. So, what are the benefits to physicians? It reduces the amount of time you need to get additional licenses in multiple states. What's the benefit of the state medical boards? They retain their autonomy. You still have to follow state laws. It facilitates the exchange of licensure and disciplinary information. And what benefit does it have to the public? Increases access to care, improves continuity of care, and enhances patient protection by sharing information about licensed physicians. There was a data study we did this past year. Those who go through the medical compact don't apply for 42 licenses typically. The average number is about 4 licenses. And the percentage of those who obtain just 1 or 2 licenses is actually the majority, 62%. But we do have those who want 3 or more licenses, about 38% of them. 7% who apply are told, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. So that's a small number. 93% go forward. And it takes about 37 days to get that initial letter of qualification from the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact Commission that you've met the 9 criteria. They have to check and verify what you present. But it then takes about 20 days, and in some cases, less than a week to get an additional license from another state. And that is phenomenal. It would take months normally to get another license to practice medicine. So 37% of all new licenses in 2024 were issued through this process. And I think it's something that you should certainly consider if you're interested in practicing telemedicine in more than one jurisdiction, or you have adjoining states where you think your patients may be located. For further information, you can contact me directly. That's my email address right there. If you have more questions about the ACOI Resident Series, you can contact Kara Kearns, the Student and Resident Programs Manager at ACOI. Thank you, everyone.